Loving Father, I want to thank you so much for this opportunity to hear from you regarding our places and our well-being. You're the author and the finisher of our faith. Thank you for the wisdom and the insight we're going to receive in how to prioritize mental health in the workplace, for the grace and the anointing to work well and live well, to create supportive, compassionate environments. We look to you as our help and we speak healing and health everyone in this webinar and all of them, that we're able to really fulfill and achieve our true potential. Thank you for every speaker and every person who participates, and for the engagement, and for our moderator. In Jesus' name we prayed. Amen.
Amen and amen. Thank you so much. Vivian Namare, you are welcome. As we go along, I might not recognize everyone as they come in, but I believe that I know we are all welcome. Yes, Nasa Anguyo, you're very much welcome. Yes, so today we are looking at prioritizing trauma at our workplace. Our objective is to have everyone trauma informed, to understand trauma, to understand how trauma affects our potential. We have 3 speakers today, and I'll be introducing the speakers as and when they come in for their session. But it's very important for us all to note that there's a lot of trauma, and trauma can come from something small, trauma can come from something big, but to the eyes of the beholder, there is nothing like small. I might lose a step and go down, and then someone will say, why don't you get up and move? But the way it affects me personally, maybe if there are so many people, the shame I feel after, it might lead us to something else instead of thinking that one can easily get off and move. It's better that we be compassionate and start understanding how people feel and validate them. And in particular today, we shall be looking at prioritizing mental health at workplace, and of course the strategies to have a trauma-informed workplace. What has happened in our world today is that we have created a culture of winning at all cost. Winning at all cost. We see someone up there, we applaud them. We don't know what they have gone through to get where they are. We are looking at the end results without considering the means. So at the end of the day, we have people leaving institutions with loads and loads of accolades, medals, achievement gifts, and all that. But when they are mentally or emotionally damaged, to get where they are, it's a process. And so many things happen in the process, even happen before the process. So it's high time we really prioritize mental health at workplace, and we also understood trauma so that we don't re-traumatize people, or we don't cause extra trauma to those that are working with us or we are working for. As I said, we have focused so much on the end results and we have ignored the means. The Ubuntu is slowly evading us or eluding us in our organizations. And at the end of the day, we end up with broken human beings. So today we are going to delve into deeper into that to understand trauma, to understand how to prioritize mental health at workplace, and also how to build resilience. I will introduce our first speaker. I can see the numbers are increasing, but I want to believe that as we go along, many more people will join us. We have the first session, which is about understanding trauma-informed care in the workplace. And it's going to explore how trauma-informed principles can enhance workplace environments, focusing on the connection between trauma-employee behavior and productivity. And to take us through this, we have Madame Mary Campogo. Mary is a counseling psychologist with 15 years of practicing experience. She is the program manager, mental health and psychosocial well-being in the Refugee Law Project. She holds a master's in administration, a master's in counseling, and is a member of the Uganda Counseling Association. And for 2 years, she has served as the chairperson of the national, as the national, that one, I'm sorry, I've forgotten it in full. Sarah, give me that one in full. MHPSS.
Mental health and psychosocial well-being.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. Working groups, that is 2022 to 2024. She's a counselor, she's a mentor and trainer. She has keen interest in working with children and wide experience in child protection and designing MHPSS interventions. In addition to that, Mary Campogo is also a director on the board for Free Mind Hive. Free Mind Hive is a non-profit organization that is looking at creating awareness via various strategies. So to take us through this session, Madame Mary, you are welcome to take us away. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Edgold. Are you able to see my face and myself?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Can I?
Yes. Sarah, can you share her presentation or give her?
I'm going to give her.
You can give me permission to share.
Yes. Yes.
And I would also request that at some point I might put off my video and come back in order for me to have good internet. I'm not in Kampala, I'm up country, so my internet might not be very good, but up till now I see it is still good.
Okay. So you're very much welcome, Mary, and you have the rights to share your presentation. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. I'm sharing. Are you able to see my presentation?
Hasn't come yet.
Hasn't come yet. Okay, let me switch off the video. At least you've seen me. Then I'll share. You're able to see now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, good morning to us all. Thank you so much, Madam Chair of this session. You have already introduced me, so I'll not add. I'll go straight to my presentation so that we use the time. I want to thank all the listeners and the participants in this webinar. Thank you so much for sparing this morning time of your Saturday for us to talk about trauma. I thank you, the ED and the board of Free Mind Hive, for inviting me and allowing me to share insights on trauma. Trauma is a subject that I have interest in, not because it's a very good thing, but because over time, through my work, I have learned that trauma is very common, very, very common. The chair explained it. It's very common, but we rarely give it the attention it deserves because it is not very visible until it affects us so badly that we don't know what to do. So it interests me, but also I am very interested in working with children, and I've also learned that trauma that affects us when we are children end up affecting us when we become adults, and trauma can affect anyone. So because of that, in my work as a counselor, that's one thing that I have interest in, but also the fact that I work with people that have gone through traumatic experiences. I have seen a lot of impact that trauma has, but also to highlight the fact that trauma can heal, trauma can be managed, the effects of trauma can be managed if we are aware and we get the support that we need, and we all need it. So my presentation is going to concentrate on about 6 things, but it's not very long, so don't worry about it. So I'm going to do some definitions of terms, including trauma, what is a workplace, what is trauma-informed care. I'll talk about traumatic experiences because there's no trauma without events. And then I'll briefly talk about the stress response that follows a traumatic experience. And then I'll talk briefly about the impact of trauma on employees. And then I will talk about what does it mean for an organization to be trauma-informed. And finally, I'll end up looking at what can organizations do, what can individuals, what can each one of us do to take care of ourselves and others. So I'll go straight to trauma. And so I'll look at, usually when we try to explain trauma, it's easier to start with the physical because the physical is visible. So trauma is a wound. It comes from a Greek, and it stands for a wound or an injury. In the physical, we understand, and probably each one of us on this platform has had an injury, small, big, deep, shallow. We have all had some injuries sometimes. And so in the physical, it's more visible. It's easy to see that I have had a scratch or I have had a cut. It's easy to see the wound. It's easier to understand. We are more trained and socialized to take care of our physical wound. We go to the doctor, we wash it, we put salt, we put herbs. We are more accustomed to take care of our physical wounds. They are easier to understand and to even go to a doctor when we have it. And they are easier to accept. We easily accept our physical wounds and seek help from different support. When we come to psychological trauma, it is still a wound, but this wound is in the mind. It's a wound in the soul. It's a wound in our mind. And it affects our thinking, our emotions, our beliefs, everything. So if you look at the brain and the mind, as I mean, the mind is more abstract. We don't touch it, but it's there. It's the one we use to think and feel and have compassion. Now, when we go through traumatic experiences, our mind, our soul get hurt. It gets injured. And this wound might be small, it might be big, it might be deep, it might heal quickly. Some of the cuts, we may not even notice them because they are very small, but some of the cuts are deep that we keep on moving with them for a longer time than others. But what is true about trauma is that it is invisible. Trauma of the mind is invisible. You don't see it. It is harder to understand because you don't touch it, but it's also harder to accept. And so that's why people who have gone through trauma sometimes do things that make us, think what's wrong with that person, because we don't know what has happened in their life. The World Health Organization defines trauma as a protracted response or a longer-term response to a stressful event or situation of an exceptionally threatening or long-lasting nature, which is likely to cause negative or pervasive distress to almost anyone. Now, this definition, when you look at it, it is looking at the big traumas, those big things that happen to us, maybe an accident, maybe a sudden death of someone. But trauma is wider than that. There are seemingly small things in life that cause trauma. For example, a lot of stress at work can be traumatizing. A shouting boss can be traumatizing. A bullying environment can be traumatizing, but we don't see those things as such. And so we need to be alert to those things. So what are some of the things, traumatic experiences? When we talk about traumatic experiences, what are we looking at? These are experiences that are life-threatening, that are scary. These are experiences that are extremely injurious. You go through an accident and you might, break your bones. And so it's injurious, something that can injure. They are shocking. They are inescapable. You can't escape them. And because you can't escape them, they are shocking. And they often make us feel helpless. Human beings, I think one of the things we don't want to deal with is being helpless. We always want to do something. We always want to feel able. And when we feel helpless because an event has happened and we can't do anything about it, we get stuck. And so, because this is an overwhelming event, then it overwhelms the inbuilt system. As human beings, as organisms, we are created with an inbuilt system to stand and cope stressful events. But that system is not infinite. It's not unlimited. It has a threshold. It can be overwhelmed. So that capacity for us to stand and cope with stressful situations can be overwhelmed by an event. And events that overwhelm that capacity are unusual events, are out of the norm event. For example, when you go through an accident or when you're attacked by a dog, it's not a usual thing that a dog will attack you. And so these are experiences that end up overwhelm that capacity. And when that capacity is overwhelmed, then we get traumatized. Our soul gets wounded, gets cut, and we experience what we would call toxic stress, stress that exceeds our ability to cope. However, we need to remember that an event doesn't have to be unusual. Remember, I talked about the big E's, the big R's, and the small R's. If you look at there in my crowd pictorial, I am saying any event with a significant degree of actual or threatened physical or psychological harm to oneself or others. Now, there are events that are actual. An accident is there, but there are also events that are perceived. Sometimes we perceive an event to be shocking or to be scary. For example, if I am going to make a presentation and I think that I'm not prepared enough and I'm going to be embarrassed, that can, psychologically, it is harmful. Now, that is not the same as going through war, but it is also traumatizing. It is wounding. And so sometimes there are small experiences that seem small, but when they are added together, they end up giving us psychological harm. So it's important for us to remember that it's not only the big things, but also the seemingly small everyday things that we go through that can be harmful. So we need to be alert. Now, what happens when we go through those experiences? What happens with our physical body? What happens with our brain? Now, we are created to respond to threats. To respond to threats in order for us to survive and remain alive. Our brain has a system that is always alert to make sure we survive. And so science has taught us that our brain has an inbuilt system which every time we go through a threatening experience, a horrifying experience, the brain tries to protect us. How does it do it? When we perceive something is a threat, the brain receives a message, and that message goes to a part of our part of the brain that is responsible for survival. The scientists call it the amygdala. That part of the brain does not think. It does not think, but it responds to threats immediately. So we have the thinking brain and we have the feeling brain. During traumatic events, the thinking brain is overwhelmed and it doesn't work. The reason why when you're attacked by a dog, you can jump over a fence. Why? Even before you think about it. Why? Because the brain doesn't allow you to process. I think God in his wisdom knew that if it allows you to process, by the time you jump, the dog would have attacked you and bite you. So that system is automatic. It is activated automatically by the brain, and it tells the body you are under attack. And the brain sends response to the different parts of the body and releases hormones. And those hormones activate our different parts of the body for us to be able to run away from the threat or to deal with the threat. Now, some of the hormones that are released is what we call cortisol. And together with other hormones work together to prepare the body, to prepare the person to deal with the threat.
Sorry, Madam Mary.
Colleagues,
Sorry.
If you, yes.
Sorry for the interruption.
A lot.
Colleagues, participants, please mute. Please mute. We have interactions. Esther, please mute. Nasanguyo, mute. Yeah, you can go ahead. We are getting echoes because of those who had not muted. You can go ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, you actually helped because I was getting the echoes also. So when we perceive threat, the brain very wisely quickly sends messages to our different parts of the body that are responsible to help us deal with a situation. And so the whole body and the whole brain is alert, is set into a survival mode. And so these hormones activate the eyes, the ears, the lungs, the heart, the legs, the muscles, everything, every part that is responsible for dealing with threat is activated. So we have the heart pumping more blood, the lungs opening up wide to take in more air, because you're going to need air to either run away or fight. And there's increased or quickened breathing. There's increase in blood sugar because you need sugar to burn and get the energy. So, and that process is automatic. It's automatic, that we have no control over it, and it prepares to deal with danger. How do we deal with it? This is how we deal with it. So the whole person is alert and is ready to deal with a situation. So we can deal with it in many ways. I have presented 3, but they are not the only ones. Science is discovering other responses. And so we either fight if we are able to, or so we either fight, you can see there, I put the fighting gears there, or we run away from the situation, or we freeze. You know, something becomes too overwhelming that you freeze. And you have had people who have come face to face with probably animals, and they faint and fall down and they black out and they wake up later. That is a freezing response, and the brain is trying to deal with a threat. Now remember that these different responses that are happening, they're happening within your body. So there's energy within your body, there's energy within your brain. And so you deal with it. So the person, the brain, our system, our survival system chooses what to do, either to fight, to run away, or to freeze. All these responses have effects. Now, this is normal. This is a normal process. It's a normal mechanism. This is how we respond when we are under threat. However, remember that because it is an overwhelming experience and it overwhelms that system to deal with circumstances, it can overwhelm our ability to cope, leaving us with a wound. Leaving us with a wound means that all these things that had started, the hormone, the heart rate, the too much blood being pumped, the breathing too much, a lot of sugar, all these are supposed to go back to normal after we have run away, after we have fought, after we have frozen. We are supposed to come back from the freezing state. Now, the bit about trauma is that when we face trauma, when we are wounded, it means that we have not come back. So that system is alarmed, and it's supposed to come back to the normal, where you are not fearing, you're not running, the blood sugars go back, the heart rate go back, and you go back to normal. Because the dog either has gone away or someone has rescued you and you are okay. In trauma, these experiences, those responses stay on. The alarm stays on, and the brain continues to sense that you are not safe. And so because the brain continues to sense that you are not safe, the person becomes overactivated, even with the seemingly simple, usual things that they go through in life. I'll give you an example. Normal experiences like for example, having a conflict with your boss can trigger a traumatic experience. For example, a staff who fails to respond to a shouting boss, or who runs away, or who fails to work, may be subconsciously triggered by a traumatizing early childhood experience of a shouting caretaker. If a staff went through a traumatic life of being shouted to or being abused by a caretaker or anyone else, they might actually find it difficult to work with a boss who is rough, simply because they are remembering, they are being triggered to remember the experience that they went through. And remember this system that I talked about, it keeps on coming back in the physical. One of the things we need to understand is that trauma is both mental and physical. What is going on in the brain is also affecting the different parts of the body. So we have energy, traumatic energy, trapped within our bodies. So experiences like a looming deadline, a missed deadline, a performance appraisal coming, an urgent call from the boss, failing to reach on time, and many others, experiences which appear to be normal and simple in a workplace can be triggering to someone who is living with a traumatic experience. What is the impact of trauma on our physical and mental health? So because of this energy that is trapped over time within our body and is never resolved and released properly, we can easily develop hypertension. Research has shown that people who have gone through traumatic experiences, especially in their childhood, later they might develop hypertension. We may develop weight gain or weight loss, because we also need to know that trauma affects people differently. I might go through the same experience with someone else, and for me, I break down and another person doesn't break down. So we are different and we are wired differently, and we have different capacities to cope with trauma. We can have sleep disturbances. I've worked with clients who go through traumatic experiences and they can no longer sleep. They get interrupted sleep. They don't sleep enough in the night. They get nightmares that keep on interrupting their sleep. We can have stomach complications, including irritable bowel syndrome. People develop ulcers. Mentally, we can develop depressive symptoms. We can become anxious. I have worked with clients that have panic attacks and they are not able to face life situations. They're not able to do interviews successfully. I have been on panels where someone literally panics and is not able to go through an interview. And if people don't understand trauma, they'll just say, that one is incompetent and throw them away. It's not true. It's important for us to be asking ourselves, what happened to this person? Why are they acting like this? Inability to concentrate on tasks. And so someone's not able to concentrate on a task, especially when they have a deadline, because they feel unsafe. They are triggered. That trauma, experience comes back and they are re-traumatized and they are triggered and not able to concentrate. People develop hyperactivity. People develop inability to concentrate on tasks because of trauma. Procrastination, keeping on, postponing tasks and they're not able to complete them. And this affects work, but also just failing to relax. Our bodies were made to sometimes feel, stressed, but also go back and relax. When we remain in an activated mode, our bodies are affected, our minds are affected, and our mental health is affected. So I've been talking about experiences that can be traumatizing, and there are many. And so I'm not going to go through all these, but let me talk about a few that can be traumatizing in an organization. Unresolved interpersonal conflicts that don't go away, a bullying colleague, a shouting colleague, blackmails at the workplace, people that boast over others, abrupt changes in organizations like redundancies, retirement that is not prepared, accidents, persistent worry over losing a job. I think today there's a lot of worry over losing a job because employment is becoming difficult, not only in Uganda, but all over. And so we can have a toxic environment that is composed of these small, seemingly small things, but keep on affecting people. Now, it's important to understand that there's traumatic experiences that can happen at the workplace. But also let us remember, as we talk about trauma-informed workplaces, that people, when they come to work in a particular place, they come as a whole. They come with their past experiences. Some of the staff you have in the different organizations or colleagues you have are struggling with past experiences, some of them childhood traumas. Okay. And so the impact, I've talked about it already, so I'll not dwell much on this one, but we can have people that have difficulty in saying no. They accept all tasks and don't fulfill any, and so they get into conflict. We can have people stammering, failing to talk, to articulate issues. We can have people who want to please others and they're not able to tell people they are not happy with certain situations. We can have people who are alcoholics, who work themselves to burn out. We can have people who are self-harming, abusing substances and alcohol and other self-harming behavior. And all that affects productivity. And so for organizations who are concerned about their staff, it's important to be aware of this. So what is a workplace? I looked at it because sometimes we look at things and we take them for granted. And I found out that a workplace is a place where someone works, for example, an office, a factory, but it can also be a place where one works for themselves or for an employer. So a woman who sells charcoal is at a workplace. A man who is rearing their goats or cows is at work. A house help in your home is a worker. So when we are talking about trauma-informed care in the workplace, we are talking about not just an office, that conventional office, but across. How do we treat our house help at home, the people who help us? I worked with one of the girls I've worked with who used to panic every time I call her. And I noticed that she would get startled, until I sat down and I asked her, am I shouting? What makes you get startled like this? Of course, after we had gotten used to each other. And she gave me her experience. And I found out that the girl had gone through terrible experiences. So we need to be very sensitive. Okay. Trauma-informed care in the workplace originates from medical care, from the medical area, and childhood trauma studies. But it has to do with, it's an approach. Trauma-informed care is an approach which always realizes that every person you meet at your work, the services you offer, just imagine that they might be a survivor of trauma. So that informs how you respond to them, how you talk to them, how you receive them. So trauma-informed care in the workplace should be a workplace that remembers that the staff they have in their workplace might have gone through trauma. So anyone you meet, any worker you meet might be a trauma survivor. Why? Because trauma is very common. There's actually, some scholars say that 6 out of 10 men and 5 out of 10 women will face traumatic experiences in their lifetime. So it's very possible that all of us on this platform have gone through some traumatic experience. So trauma-informed care puts in mind that everyone I meet might have gone through trauma. So I must do something to ensure that I don't re-traumatize them. I don't make them remember. Re-traumatizing is making the person remember their trauma and re-experiencing it in some way. I don't re-traumatize them, but I also don't cause trauma. But also I put in place measures that can protect staff from trauma. So the basic principles, I'll go through them very fast because I've already used my time. According to the Institute of Trauma and Trauma-Informed Care, USA, there are 6 principles. The first one is safety, ensuring that the workplace is safe, both physical and emotional. The second one is trustworthiness and transparency, people being able to feel that they can trust their workplace. Peer support is very key. Collaboration and mutuality, a workplace that promotes collaboration, working together, and mutual respect, and ensuring that staff are able to express themselves, but also making sure that they are aware that people are different in very many ways, in culture, in history, and gender. So what should organizations do? First of all, it is important for organizations to invest in educating themselves, the leaders educating themselves about trauma and how trauma affects the well-being of staff and their ability to work. Then they should invest in educating their staff about trauma. I have learned in my work that when people understand trauma, they find it a bit easier to understand their symptoms and even cope with them and seek support. So organizations need to educate, sensitize, raise awareness about trauma because trauma is wide and enormous. Having policies that ensure safety, which I talked about earlier, clear communication that allows the staff to say, what they want to say appropriately, but with respect. Building a culture of respect, respecting everyone. Putting in place mental health support services and fight stigma. Workplaces need to put in place a system that allows staff that need mental health support to access it and also enable them to access it, because even when support services are available for some offices, the level of stigma, when you go to see a counselor, everyone thinks you're crazy. You have so many problems. So we need to fight that and invest in staff support activities. I have been on self-care committees, and you hear management say, no, self-care is self. It begins with you. It is true, it begins with you. But organizations can do something to create spaces where staff are able to steam out, to have fun, to connect with each other outside work. And what can we do as individuals? Information. Trauma can affect the quality of your life. Get the information you need to understand trauma. And I put, there's a link I put. You can go to that website and read. It gives you, I think that is very, very important, because once we don't understand it, we cannot understand why people respond the way they respond, which we think is abnormal. It can heal, trauma can heal. So let's get information, let's seek help. We don't have to be ignorant. We shouldn't be ignorant at all, because trauma that affects you can, including your, accept symptoms and seek support. Do not judge people. Let's learn to look at people and try to think, what happened to this person, instead of thinking, what's wrong with this person? Instead of laying off your staff because they are abusing alcohol, it's important to find out what is making this person behave like this. And then I'll end by this, to thank you very much. I love these animals. Wherever find them, they are together. I think they are one of the social animals that I've seen. And when you look at them, when they stand, their feet are on ground and they are able to fly, as you can see that one flying. Once we build cultures that promote care and well-being, we will be able to fly by being productive. Thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much. I'll clap for you on behalf of the entire team physically. I know I can even clap virtually. Thank you so much for doing that topic justice. For sure, I will not even bother to make a summary because you've really done it very well. I only want to echo that trauma does not discriminate, and it's quite overwhelming, and we should not underrate people's feelings. What is small to you is not small to the other one. And we know that the alarm stay on. When you talked about the alarm, recently I realized that I was affected by the 1979 war. And I think it's my daughter who said, Mommy, I think that war affected you because I don't like any banging. I don't like any noise. Anything that happens, you see me running to find out what has happened. Has someone fallen down? What has happened? Recently, there were fireworks, and I was like, oh my God, what is happening? So that thing, I had not realized that it was the Saba Saba of those days, but which is coming out, and I'm now understanding it at my age like that, like now. Let's be intentional in understanding those that are around us. Mary pointed out something very, very pertinent, but it was just a small touch in her presentation. We all use maids. We need to understand what is happening to the maids we bring in our home. The smiles we see are hiding quite a lot. And when it comes up, that trauma will affect everyone in the home. So we need to understand and then know how to support each other. I always say that we are all human beings, whether I'm a boss or a maid, we are all human beings. The starting point is that we should all behave and treat each other as human beings. Thank you very much, Mary. Those who have questions, please keep them. And we have a question and answer session at the end of at the end of this presentation. We are now going to look to the second session, and allow me to introduce the person who is taking us through the second session. We have Mrs. Salome Ruyombo, the General Manager, Human Resource Centenary Bank. She's a seasoned HR with over 30 years experience in corporate human resource management, cutting across multinational and local organizations in banking, telecommunication, and power sectors in Uganda. She has developed and implemented people strategies that include leadership and organization development, talent management, employee engagement, change management, and employee wellness. She's a graduate of the CEO Apprenticeship Program. She previously worked with KCB, Stanbic, and which is a member of the Standard Bank Group, MTN, and started her career within the power sector as a graduate trainee. She has risen to where she is right now. She's a board member at CBS Radio, a board member at Impact and Innovation Development Center. She's a trainer with the Institute of Banking and Financial Institutions. She's a member of Human Resource Managers Association of Uganda and a member of the Global Alliance for Banking on Value Human Development Steering Committee. More so, she is a Rotarian and serves on various school management committees. No one can take us through the workplace better than Solomon. Please help me to welcome Solomon to take us through the session on creating supportive work environment. And here the HR managers will help us to drum it in the institutions, for we need to have trauma-informed policies And at Free Mind Hive, we can even support the organizations to make these policies. Madame Solome, take us away in this one. You are starting now at 10:54. You have up to 11:14 to give your session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Edgold. I'm so blessed to be here this morning, and I appreciate everyone that has taken off their Saturday to be part of this presentation. Mine is very simple. Mary has taken us through trauma, the impact of trauma, and what we can do as employers to support our employees in that regard. However, trauma is just part of the things that affect mental health in the workplaces and mental health amongst our employees or co-workers. So today, at the end of my 15 minutes, I've got about 15 minutes. At the end of the 15 minutes, I should be able to have a good appreciation of what a supportive work environment is as it relates to mental health, understand the mental health issues that we have within the workplace and what causes them, but also get to know what are the benefits of a supportive work environment. Yes, when people are affected, they will still come to work, but within the workplace, we should make sure that they thrive within the workplaces that they have. So trauma is just a part of the mental health issues, that we have. So I would like you to appreciate what mental health is. So according to the World Health Organization, mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well and work well, but most importantly of all, contribute to their communities. And because I'm sharing on a supportive work environment, I would also want you to appreciate what a supportive work environment is. One, it is that environment where focus is not only on the employee's performance, because for most of us, we go to work. And of course, we have been given jobs to do, and we are expected to do them. But when it comes to building a supportive work environment, it's not just about work and employee performance, but it is also about the well-being of the people that come to us or of the people that come to our workplaces. Then secondly, it is that environment where supervisors, people that lead others, make time for their employees. They make time to understand them. They make time to appreciate what it is that they are going through. And most of all, this is done through conversations. You will not know what someone is going through unless you're very observant or you've been taken through to pick pointers to things that will show that someone is not well. Because in most cases, when people are traumatized, the tendency is to get into their own shell and not speak up or not open up. So it takes an observant supervisor and a manager who cares to just see that something is just not right with my employees. And this is through usually conversations. Also, supportive environment is where you allow people to take reasonable breaks. There are people that work in factories, in manufacturing factories, where it is work, the targets are like targets. You have to make these units of output today, and it creates a lot of work. But I also work in a bank, and banks are extremely stressful, but you have to allow people to take off reasonable breaks. Then also a supportive work environment has in place policies and procedures that will support their staff to thrive. And most importantly of all, employers need to have employee assistance programs in place. So moving away a bit from trauma that we've had, trauma is just a part of the mental health issues that we have in the workplace. Maria talked about accidents, a lot of fear within the workplace, having nagging and line managers that shout at others, the fear of failure, you're going to fail in your performance, the fear of failure, the fear of bullying, accidents. In my workplace, we have so many of our officers riding, they're riders. We have over 500 staff. that are riding on a daily. They are out there exposed to accidents. Others, it's really the home environments where they are that create a lot of trauma. So we have a bit of trauma within the organization. So that post-trauma stress disorder is real in the workplaces. So people moving into themselves, they hide, and especially the men, because men fear to be called weak. So even when they are traumatized, they don't speak up, and so they suffer. They usually suffer very, very much. Then we have a big thing that we are actually witnessing, growing. It is increasingly becoming a problem and a challenge in the workplaces, and this is depression. So depression is really that persistent feeling of sadness. Someone loses interest in the things that they usually like to do. They no longer take keen interest in the things that made them happy before. If you had a team building and people contributed and people were having fun, you'll see someone so withdrawn. They are depressed. And this post-COVID era has brought in that bit. Many people were locked up with people that they never loved. Yeah, the president woke up one time and said, now the whole country is under lockdown. Some people were locked in with people that they didn't love, and they stayed in that kind of environment for a very long time. People lost their jobs, people lost their loved ones. So coming out of that, unless you have a workplace that appreciates that they will have challenges, if you're not intentional about it, then you find so many people that are depressed. Depression is a big challenge that we are currently seeing on the increase, but many workplaces and employers are recognizing that this is an issue, and they are beginning to deal with it. We have then the bipolar disorder. We've worked for us that work in big organizations, and because we've been supported to appreciate some of the signs and symptoms that you will see people demonstrate, and then you'll know, hang on a second, I think there is something here that is just not right. You'll find someone with bipolar, they have their mood swings. Today they are happy, the next moment they are depressed, they are very sad, they are withdrawn. And the other moment they are so switched on, they are talking to everyone, they are so excited. So those mood swings, of course, impact on performance. When they are at the high, they are so energetic, okay? They are so energetic, they are switched on, they are moving and encouraging everyone, talking to everyone. And when they are depressed, it is now the other side of the story. These are things that we are seeing in the workplace, and we really need to support our staff and our employees to deal with these challenges. The other is anxiety. Of course, there is a lot of anxiety. I don't know, my slide is moving. I don't know. I'm keeping getting a black screen, but let me see. Anxiety, the anxiety disorders. Anxiety is like you have that excessive worry. You worry about tomorrow. You worry about the deliverables that you're going to have. You worry about your supervisor. You worry about your finances. You worry so much about your children. So that worry causes anxiety in the workplace. And once you have that anxiety, definitely your productivity is going to be impacted. And part of that is because of the trauma that Mary talked so much about, the trauma that people go through. I don't know why my slide keeps closing. I don't know, but I'll try. Then we have the disruptive behavior. Yes, when it is disruptive, someone will just wake up one moment and they also don't even know why they are doing the certain things that they do. Today they are okay, tomorrow they are doing something completely different, and people keep worrying, what is going on with this person? Okay, disruptive behavior. They've talked about alcoholism. In workplaces, you will see so many people that are struggling with alcohol. And what I know, because in some places that is taken as misconduct. You're a banker, you're going to be interacting with customers, you're not going to come in when you're smelling alcohol. So we would want you to be in a place where that kind of behavior will be minimized. However, because of the trauma and the things that people go through, you'll find that people are coming up with behavior that is inappropriate in the workplace. But that doesn't mean that we should push them out. We will support you to the extent that we can as employers. Mary talked about excessive stress and burnout. So many organizations are under a lot of pressure to deliver on targets, to make sure that their organizations are profitable. There is a lot of stress. There is heavy workload, very tight timelines within which to deliver. There are long work hours. Yes, some organizations are okay, people come in 5 to 8 and they will leave. In many organizations, people will stretch. Some even work night. So you'll find that someone dreads to actually go and work at night because that they would want to spend time with their family, or that causes mental issues within the workplace. And if we are not very careful as employers, we are going to struggle with good. We are going to struggle having people that are energized and switched on at the workplace. So what are some of these causes of mental health issues that we are increasingly beginning to see, with trauma being one of them? I've talked about the heavy workload and pressure, lack of work-life balance. In my workplace, I literally force people to take leave. I usually tell them that, you know what, your heart can stop, but work will not stop. So if your heart stops today, yes, we have medical insurance, you will be supported, but the organization will go on. It is important that you too, it is important, I don't know, my screen is moving. It is important that you also find time for yourself and take care of yourself and have adequate rest. You can meditate, take off time, go read a nice book, rest. Just switch off your phone and rest. The other is the workplace culture. If you have a culture, I know there are some organizations where, especially, I don't want to mention, of course, here, but there are workplaces where people are, especially within the manufacturing sector. Within the manufacturing sector, there is a lot of stress. There is a culture of pressure. There is a culture of abuse. There is a culture people are not given. They are not given job descriptions. People work in, and anytime you can be sacked. So when you have such kind of work environment, then with that kind of culture, you're going to have people struggle with mental health issues. Leadership, I won't go into that. I have very few minutes. Job insecurity. When people worry, I'll not have a job tomorrow. I don't have anywhere to go. I'll not be able to pay for fees. I'll not be able to provide for my family. That causes anxiety. It causes stress. And ultimately, you're going to see people struggling in the workplace. Even the jobs that we do, if people are not clear, today I'm doing this, tomorrow I'm doing this, and my supervisor expects me to deliver on things against which I have no clarity, that causes problems. It causes anxiety. It causes fear. And in most cases, that is where you have anxiety coming in. Someone is going into a performance evaluation, but because they were not very clear on what they were expected to do, they are so anxious, they get into the conversation and they are just stuck. They can't do anything. They can't even communicate. We cannot forget workplace harassment. Yes, we usually talk about sexual harassment. It's not just sexual harassment, but it can be harassment of another form. Your line manager picking on you all the time. You're the one who comes in not dressed well. You're the one whose work is late, even when others are doing the same thing. Someone spots you and they're just so much against you. That causes pain. That causes a lot of fear. So these are some of the things that are in the workplace. And this is a topic that will take a whole day, even a week. You can cut out like 3 days just discussing mental health within the workplace. But because of the limited time, we will stick to this. So we heard about trauma. We've had the different mental health issues within the workplace. So as employers, how do we create an environment that makes our employees know that they can be supported? You have a work environment where people can come in, you have safe places, you know they can speak up even when they are struggling and they will not be judged. The most important thing is having a mental health policy in place. I know many organizations have not developed one, but just like COVID came, when COVID came, many of us didn't have remote work policies. We didn't have remote work policies, but the environment forced us to have these in the workplace. Today, many organizations have the remote work policies in place and guidelines. So if you're not going to come to work, what is expected of you? What is your employer expected of you? What other tools will you be supported with? So that came in after COVID. But post-COVID, we are seeing probably it's because of the lockdown that we had. Now, increasingly, employers are giving attention to mental health issues. So mental health, having a mental health policy in place is very, very important. Spelling out how do we recognize mental health issues? How do we support? What is the role of the employer in all this? What is the role of the employee in this, in making sure that our workplace is a place that appreciates mental health, we support our employees, and we help them thrive. So some of the things that we do initially, it is empathy. Empathy comes with you appreciating what the other person is going through. I had one of our staff who was hit. You know, these in my area, they call them Kasolo group. They came and hit him and he fell unconscious. So yesterday I was just chatting and saying, today is Friday. Will you go out? And he said, you know what? I no longer have, nightlife. For me, that was cut out. You clearly, when Maria talked about trauma, even until now, it is over, maybe it's coming to about 8 months, but even until now, he still fears to go out. He was traumatized. That accident, he was hit by these guys, by these young people. To date, he still fears to go out. That is trauma. And we need to support him to just say, you know what, this is something that you can get over, or if you have to hang out, then make sure that you go back within time, that you don't have to work very, very late. Be empathetic. Understand what the person is going through. Then the mental health awareness. Maria talks about education. We have to support people. We have to train them to know how to spot the signs. You have to know when people are struggling. So what are those signs? When you see someone who used to be very, very active, so vocal, so switched on, they are beginning to withdraw. They are not communicating. Can you please get to know? Just have a conversation with them. What is it? I noticed these days you're no longer as active as you used to be. You're no longer contributing in the meeting. Is there something? Are you free to share? Can we talk about it? Get to understand, but these signs, you have to be educated. We have to sensitize our people to promote mental health awareness so they get to know. Work-life balance. We've said one of the strategies is heavy workload. Encourage people to have work-life balance. In my workplace, we have aerobics every Thursday and Tuesday. You can have 2 hours of working out. Go work out, dance. People go for Zumba. When you dance, it takes out the pressure that you have. Connecting with your God or with Allah, connecting with God is one of the things that helps you to deal with your mental health issues once you have them. Go into a place, pray, listen to music, to worship music. That sort of gives you a position of knowing there is a higher being that actually cares so much more about you than even any other people that you have. Get into places where you can have church music, people go into cells, they read the Bible, they share. So if you see someone who used to go to for their cell and they had a meeting, probably weekly, and they're not doing it now, find out why. The physical workspaces where we sit and work. You will find some offices have closed offices. So if someone is struggling because they look themselves in, you cannot even pick, you cannot know that they're actually struggling unless you break the barrier and get into their space. But good enough, these days people have encouraged physical open workspaces. You can actually observe. Or you can quickly walk to your colleague and ask them, what is it? And this is what I'm not seeing. So the physical workspaces are also an important physical thing when it comes to mental wellness. Because there people can quickly speak to each other. They are not blocked out. The employee assistance programs here, we have a lot of counseling, we have medical, some of the traumas that we say are physical. Someone has had an accident, they need to be treated. But even after that, they need to be supported with counseling. In COVID, people lost their loved ones. We didn't bury. In my department, we lost our staff. It was so traumatizing. And for me, the most traumatizing thing was we didn't go for burial. Of course, we watched on YouTube. It was so painful. Just saying we couldn't be there, we couldn't mourn them, we couldn't bury. We actually had to go through a counseling session because people couldn't cope with the pain. So if there are counseling opportunities, please provide them for people to go through so they are supported by professionals and experts. Have clarity of what people have to do. When people struggle with not knowing what to do, they suffer. Conflicts in the workplace, manage conflicts. Let people talk about what it is that they are struggling with. And recognition. If someone has been through a traumatizing situation and they come out of it, recognize them, appreciate them. Those that have stepped out to learn. We have peer counselors in my workplace. Recognize those people that are giving more to help others in the workplace. Most importantly of all, encourage collaboration and connection. We are human beings, we are emotional beings. Let's connect within the workplace. When we connect and communicate, this is going to reduce all the trauma that people have. Just knowing that people within my workplace know that we care about them. They know that we can do something about their situation. Like I said, this situation, this entire topic can take us a whole day. But we started with trauma and these other mental health issues. Members, we have to have in place policies and procedures that are going to have trauma-aware policies and procedures. Understand the what, understand the how of the support, and this is everyone's responsibility. Today I might not be suffering, but tomorrow I will be stressed and I'll be in the same situation that is someone has been traumatized with. So it is for every one of us to make sure that we create work environments that are supportive, nurturing, and are caring. So that is it from myself, and the benefits of supportive work environment, improved productivity, reduced absenteeism, the business overall performance, enhanced mental well-being, and of course, personal growth and development. I would like to thank you and over to you, Edgar, for questions. Thank you, Tim, and thank you for connecting this morning.
Thank you so much, Solomon. Thank you for going deep into that subject. And I'm happy to hear an HR professional talking about creating safe place for employees. This speaks exactly into my opening remarks that we join organizations, and in the organizations, we concentrate more on the results and ignore on the means to the results. And you find that people are stressed, and they leave the organizations more damaged than they entered, even when they leave with lots of accolades, talking about the results. Again, like our former speaker said, the workplace is not only in the office, it's where you are working. And we need also to look at home, at our homes. Those who stay at home, those who have people at home, we should also create that conducive environment. Then we have to know that there's quite a lot of stress going on. Recently, it is said, please, those who are not speaking, kindly mute yourselves. Colleagues, kindly mute yourselves. Pinklin Hope, kindly mute yourself. And others, please. It is said that the guy was in the taxi and out of exhaustion, he slept. And in the middle of it all, he just shouted on top of his voice, "Bananywa porridge," that they will drink porridge, meaning he was trying to think about how to fend for his family. And again, mental health is something that is shunned. When you talk about mental health, people immediately think about madness. And yet, when we talk about mental health, we are talking as much as we talk about physical health. So it is a subject that is still shunned, but we are at Free Mind Hive, we are doing a level best to create awareness. Then let's be intentional in looking at and in studying our colleagues. At one time, actually, I would just give my own example. Somewhere in the past, I don't know how many years ago, but it's so many years ago. I was going through something and I couldn't speak. But I went to a shop and I bought two shirts that I still have now. I used to put them on. No one asked what actually it meant. It had a write-up on the front and that the sun hid behind the cloud. And no one ever. But when you look at people and you find that they have certain things that are so questionable, you find a way of, creating that environment where they can share. Remember, in mental health, we don't say what happened. We don't say what's wrong. We try to understand what happened. When you ask somebody what's wrong, it is already judgmental and they won't be able to express themselves. So with all this around us, we need to learn, we need to learn more about how to create, how to build resilience. So we are going to have our third speaker who is going to take us through building the resilience building tools and techniques. We want to learn how to manage workplace stress and build resilience with a focus on employees navigating trauma, all healing journeys. And remember, when we talk about employees, we are not excluding the maids, we are not excluding the shamba boy, we are not excluding the man that grazes your cows. Everyone is included here. For trauma does not discriminate. It affects us differently. The coping methods are different, and we are going to go through that. Please join me to welcome the Executive Director of Free Mind Hive, Sarah Tushemerire Twine, who is a God-fearing and certified public speaker. She's a certified entrepreneur, an innovator, a writer, a baker, and a mental health and well-being coach who is passionate about holistic health. She has a lived experience for over 25 years of ups and downs that culminated into a 1-month coma and many more months of hospitalization. But we thank God that she has been able to keep her head up despite all this. It is not easy, but you can imagine she's now the executive director of Free Mind Hive. Don't give up, never give up. Don't ever get to that level. Try to find people to speak to. It's not, you don't give up. Let's continue praying. Let's attach ourselves to our Creator and find a way of living to the next day. She has served on the board of World Federation for Mental Health as the regional vice president for Africa. She has served as the chair of the African Mental Health Advisory Committee and organized continental activities. And on the same board, she worked as the secretary for World Federation for Mental Health youth section that conducted global activities. Help me to welcome Sarah, who is going to take us through resilient building and share with us the tools of survival. Sarah, you can take us away. You have 20 minutes. You'll be finishing at 11:43. And please keep your questions. We are going to have a session of question and answers. Sarah, you are welcome.
Can you hear me? Sorry, I was muted. Are you able to see my presentation?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Mother, for that introduction, and to the previous speakers. Thank you. I've actually learned a lot. Thank you for the great work that you're doing, and everyone for taking time to invest in our new mental health and at the workplace. So as Mother has said, this session will be looking at practical strategies for managing workplace stress and building emotional resilience. Um, okay. Okay, so the overview, what we'll look at, we recognize that many employees face hidden barriers and from personal trauma to everyday stress. So this session will have tools that will help us manage these challenges and how to support each other. So we're going to look at yes, building emotional resilience, the importance of self-care and peer support, and the strategies for those on a healing journey.
Sorry, ED. Sylvia,
Yes.
kindly mute. We are getting the echo in her presentation. Thank you. Those who are not speaking, please keep your mics muted. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mother. So together we're going to explore ways to build strength from within and create the supportive environment for navigating mental health challenges and trauma, recovering from trauma. Irene? So there's the global impact of workplace stress. So behind all these numbers, let us have a consciousness that there are colleagues, our friends, our family members, and loved ones who are struggling to balance the weight of trauma or mental health challenges at the workplace. According to World Health Organization, we see that just depression and anxiety alone cost the global economy $1 trillion per year is lost in productivity, and up to 25% of the workers face severe stress due to trauma, societal pressure, and poor working condition. In Uganda, the study in 2018 revealed that 35% of all employees, now that was in 2018, and as Madame Solomon said, how about now after after COVID? But the stress is highly linked to economic instability and trauma from past conflicts. The other presenters really went into what causes stress in the workplace. Maybe I could touch on discrimination and inequality. When there is a workplace where there's discrimination and inequality, it causes stress, whether they're discriminating you because of gender or even mental health challenges. Most of us who are on this journey, sometimes you don't know how to disclose. When we're actually looking for a speaker for this session, wanted someone with lived experience who has been able to disclose their mental health journey at work. And unfortunately, most of us feel we either won't get the job or we're treated differently. So you find that discrimination and inequality really causes so much stress in the workplace. So Madame Mary had taken us through how stress affects our mental health and productivity, and even Madame Salome. So just to highlight also that there is burnt out. Prolonged stress can lead to burnt out and it affects our productivity. In Uganda, so far 20% of people experience mental health challenges. So as mentioned earlier, most times we'll have a colleague at work who is facing, who's undergoing, who is living with a mental health challenge. And of course, poor mental health. When we speak about mental health, it's about the mind. So the mind is used for reasoning, judging, thinking, and if we are experiencing poor mental health, of course, it will affect productivity. There'll be someone won't show up at work. There'll be lower work efficiency, and it will cost us a lot. So some stress management techniques that work at work, these tools are very simple but powerful. We acknowledge that small changes can lead to big improvements in how we feel. So the first one is mindfulness. Practicing mindfulness, just being able to be aware, actually, that's what it means. And it happens at the frontal lobe here in our brain. Being aware of what is happening or what has just happened can help us manage stress instead of denial. But just taking a moment and being mindful of how you're feeling and meditating just for 5 minutes daily, it can reduce stress. The other one is time management, breaking up our day into time blocks, private and prioritizing important tasks first. And then self-care activities like walking, journaling, and engaging in hobbies. As mentioned earlier, that sometimes the tight deadlines and make it hard for us to really involve or engage in these hobbies, in these activities, but it is shown to reduce burnt out. So we're just going to practice this right now. I encourage us to take in a deep breath. When we take in a deep breath, we're going to try and notice how each part of our body feels. This immediately helps release some tension. So let's do it together. We're going to breathe in through our nose and then exhale through our mouth, but from the deep core of our abdomen and muscles. So just going to breathe in, hold it, then breathe out. And as you do that, notice, pay attention to your body. So sometimes when personally I feel scared, I begin by acknowledging how I'm feeling right now, and I acknowledge the stressor. So I can say, I feel scared right now because they've screamed at me. That is part of mindfulness. And then taking off time to reflect. So whether it's on a positive thought or on a scripture, and personally, I invite God to speak to me about what has just happened. So mindfulness and whether it will involve any reflection can take place anywhere and anytime. You can even do it on your desk. So emotional resilience, what is it and why does it matter? These two still are simple but powerful. It is the ability to adapt to stressful situations or crises. And as Madam Mary said, now, if there is even trauma involved, our ability to adapt to this situation is actually affected. But emotional resilience, building up, helps us bounce back from trauma or any adversity or any, so that we are able to continue to function. And employees with high resilience are 60% less likely to experience burnout. So, some techniques for strengthening emotional resilience. These techniques can foster confidence and emotional strength in navigating workplace challenges. The first one is being kind to yourself, self-compassion during difficult times. I know how I know this very well. I sometimes I criticize and judge myself harshly, especially when I wanted to accomplish something in time. So I found that being kind to myself during those difficult times actually helps. And understanding trauma, knowing that some of the ways I respond is because something happened to me and I got stuck in either the freeze, the flight, the phone, the apps she talked about. And sometimes when I find myself in that, responding from that, of late, that self-compassion, saying that there's nothing wrong with me, but it's because of what happened that I respond this way. So self-compassion is crucial. And then learning to reframe negative thoughts, shifting our perspective, seeing challenges as opportunities for growth and learning and healing. So when I'm triggered, these days it's easy, not easy, but I start to see that opportunity like, oh, I need to heal more in this area. Then setting realistic goals. This is very hard for us someone whose coping mechanism can be hyper focused, mother can tell you. Because I focus a lot, you find that the need for setting small achievable steps I needed other than overwhelming myself with too much at once. Madame Solomon talked about how sometimes saying no can be difficult for an employee. So when we notice this and we support others or ourselves to be able to say, okay, I'll just take on one task and then finish it. Then practicing gratitude, focusing on what we are thankful for. Regular gratitude practice has shown to improve mental health and resilience. Taking a moment, having in that stressful moment or at the end of the day, looking back and saying, God, I'm thankful that I was able to accomplish this. I'm thankful for my job. There's a way it builds resilience, enables us to bounce back, even if something has not gone as we had planned. Cultivating a personal relationship with God, Madame Solomon highlighted this. When we know that there is a higher power, there is someone who really loves you, who's looking out for you, and we have that personal relationship, we can easily talk with him and lean on him for strength and help to navigate these life's challenges. So many times when something happens, I take a pause and I'm like, God, I'm feeling this way. I need your comfort right now. And just that simple technique, knowing that I have a friend with me who will help me get stuck. I'm like, Holy Spirit, what should I do now? I need to present this. How should I do it? That strengthens our emotional resilience. And of course, creating boundaries, an area that I need to grow in, to learn to say no when there is necessity. It protects our mental and emotional energy. And of course, the life work balance and others that my colleague, the presenters have spoken of. But one of the main is the power of peer support. I was very happy to hear that Centenary has peer support there. We thrive when we lean on each other, when we know that we're not going through a challenge alone. Because I'm still on my journey of healing, there are times when I I just can't show up. Something happens, maybe as you had earlier, only disturbed sleep. I can take 36 hours not sleeping 2, 3 days. And in that moment, I can't function well. But knowing that I have colleagues, my mom, who can support me, it reduces stress knowing that we're not alone. It builds community, workplaces with strong support system. They actually report a higher morale and employee retention. And you see, Uganda as a nation, we have a focus on building community already. So if we are able to bring peer support in our place, it helps us a lot. By investing in peer support workplace, we create a culture, trust, connection, and collective healing. Knowing, yes, I'm going through this, I am on my journey of healing. I still have dreams. I can achieve my potential. How best can we support each other to still achieve our potential? So peer support will be emotional resilience, will feel understood, there'll be increased productivity and shared learning. Like of recent, I had to reach out to a peer support community and ask them, how do I navigate this? And someone is able to tell me when they've not slept, how they go about it. In fact, at work, we have a room where we encourage our employees to take a 15-minute break now in case you need it out of your lunchtime break. So you find those things, and because we have peer support, we are able to share with each other. So fostering a supportive workplace really helps us. And how can we do that? We start with regular check-ins, as Mother has said, with your colleague. Share how you're feeling. I found that the more I share how I'm feeling, even if I'm a leader, it enables my colleagues to also be able to share how they're feeling. To say, I didn't have enough sleep, or as triggered and I feel unsafe right now. The other way is creating safe spaces for dialogue about mental health. We actually begin the first 20 minutes of our time, of our morning. We have to ask, how are you? How was your night? How are you feeling right now, so that we can know how to support. And some of us are on medication. So you find that maybe in the morning I cannot be as productive as the afternoon. So flexible work hours do help. Like last night, I had to take my medicine for sleep to make sure that I'm a bit fresh this morning. And I woke up thinking, no, I still want to sleep. But when we know our employees and we're checking in and creating these safe spaces, it does help. So encouraging also peer mentorship and support groups at our workplaces. So just our key takeaways. Remember, resilience is not about never falling or failing. It's about how we rise and support each other on the journey. What comes to mind is that palm tree in a hurricane, and how winds and storms come and make it bend, and it's okay. It's a normal response to the circumstance. So sometimes these depressive symptoms, anxiety, panic, they're actually normal responses to the environment, what is happening. But building resilience enables us to bounce back. So one, identify your stressors and manage them through mindfulness, self-care with God. Two, strengthen emotional resilience by being kind to yourself and setting realistic goals. Three, build a peer support system to foster a supportive and connected workplace. Even if your workplace doesn't have it now, but if you can identify a colleague that you can go to and just be heard, be seen, and receive the empathy that Madame Salome spoke about. So resources for further learning, there is a World Health Organization stress management guide. Actually, this campaign, why we're talking about work well and live well, the World Federation for Mental Health chose the theme for World Mental Health Day, which was on October 10th, to be it's time to prioritize mental health in the workplace. They have a campaign guide and how to make sure it is in the workplace. Then there's some mindful apps and free mind hive. We are updating our second app, having version 2, then resilience building articles, then seeking help from our local Ugandan support, Mental Health Uganda, Mind Matters. So the different resources out there, we're not alone. Mental health in the workplace. It's really time to prioritize mental health in the workplace, and not just as an individual responsibility, but as a collective commitment to create a compassionate, supportive, resilient workplaces where everyone can thrive no matter where they are on their journey. Thank you very much for taking this time to invest in your well-being. We are in this together. Reach out, send an email, visit our website. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, our Executive Director, Sarah. We can only learn from the horse's mouth. Those who know Sarah, you know her story. It was all over the TV. It is on social media, on YouTube. So when she's sharing from the experience. And that's why we are looking for people with experience, that even who are in different workplaces, so that we can share. We shall come up with other webinar. We have another webinar on the knowing your rights, and we shall get the right people to talk to us in November. So when you are here, please look out. We have that. We are going to be sharing the details on our social handles. Thank you so much, Sarah, for taking us through that. Thank you, Mary Campogo, for taking us through that session. I will apologize on behalf of Solomon. She had to leave us, but I'll be taking her questions. Now, as I promised you earlier, it's time for Q&A. We are really running short.
Sorry, Madam
Oh,
Edgold.
you are
I
still
hadn't
here?
yet signed. I hadn't
Okay,
yet signed
it's
out.
good. So if you have questions for Solomon, please ask them before she signs out. I'm glad that she's still with us. Questions and answers. What you do, put up your virtual hand, and then I'm in the chat. I'm on the registration trying to see those whose hands are up, and I'll be able to ask you to mute and ask. Please ask questions. Even if make sure you understand this topic, it is very pertinent. Remember, we can't thrive unless our mental health is in good order. And we've talked about what disturbs or what causes imbalance, and that one of it is trauma. So I will start with Madame Kasaga Prosi. Please go unmute yourself and ask a question.
Good morning, everyone. Am I loud and clear?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. First of all, I would like to thank you, moderator, Madam Eddie Gold, and the speakers, Madam Mary, Salome, and Sarah. I'm Kasaga Prosi, a counselor from Naguru Teenage Center, Reproductive Health Uganda, a member of Uganda Counseling Association, and also Myenga Sunday Sunset, the Director of Family Affairs. Now, I wanted Madam Mary and Salome to elaborate on my concern about mental health. When we have such platforms on such topics about trauma and the other factors that affect mental health, we come up with the final conclusion that we all need therapists, and those are the professionals, therapists, counselors. But it has come to my observation that schools have really come up with this idea of involving professionals that have to do with mental health. But I've also observed that in organizations, so many of the organizations in Uganda have not come up with this idea that professionals are needed. For example, I went to a certain organization and I was talking to a human resource manager. And this person was telling me that they do not, as a person, an individual, they do not think it is okay for them to talk to someone. And then when I went ahead to one of the employees in that organization, this employee was telling me that they think or believe that they can always find solutions. They don't need someone to talk to come up with solutions or to help them. So my concern is, if we are here and we want to help people, but the individuals at the top do not think this idea is really important, how are we going to be able to help people? Do we need also to make sure that we also create awareness for people like the CEOs, the presidents, or even the human resource managers? Because if we do not talk to these people to encourage or make them understand that this is important, because they are going to be the people to talk to the employees to understand they need these services. So my issue, I would love for Madame Mary and Madame Solomon to elaborate more on that, because I have come to notice that we are not going to be able to actually impact people's lives when we are not being helped with the people who are at that top. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prosi. I'm going to take the second question and then I'll pass over to our presenters. Mr. Herbert Habomuremyi, unmute and ask your question. And Prosi, you please mute now. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Herbert, over to you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me well?
Is this Father Herbert?
Yes, this is Father Herbert.
Oh, glad to hear from you. Go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, I am actually in Kenya, and incidentally, what you are presenting is relevant to me because this is part of my course. I'm actually pursuing a master's degree in peace studies and international relations. So your topic is very relevant, but also very helpful to me. And I have learned a lot from the presenters. So I thank you so much for organizing this talk. And I'm sure it is a relevant presentation across global. I want actually to especially focus on the final presenter. I don't recall her name. What is her name?
Sarah.
Madam Mandy? Eh?
Sarah. She's called Sarah.
Sarah, yes. Sarah presented really very well, and her presentation was very touching, especially by really preparing for this presentation amidst the challenges she experienced. It was enriching and very touching to me. And my question is about severe, maybe trauma in some kind of conflict zones. Like I think we are all familiar with what happened with the genocide of Rwanda, whereby people are still really, struggling with trauma up to this point. So much so that people actually have some sicknesses that are really severe and have really lost hope. So I'm wondering about the procedures of trauma recovery especially when it is very severe? What comes first? What are the procedures? Do you first seek for medication? Do you need to first meet maybe the chancellor to help you? The counseling kind of programs. What comes before? Do you first take the medication? Do you need the counseling, programs to help you in this kind of conflict, in this kind of severe trauma? What comes before? What are the procedures for trauma recovery, especially in some kind of genocide places like Rwanda, where people experienced severe trauma and they are still experiencing that? So that is my question, actually. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Father Herbert. We'll let Salome start with Kasaga's question, Kasaga Prosti, the counselor from Naguru, and then we shall get Mary to attempt Herbert's question, Father Herbert's question. Over to you, Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Edgold. Madam Kasaga's question was on how do you get leaders to appreciate that mental wellness is an issue, but also not only the executives, but also the heads of HR. Different organizations are at different levels. Some are already established, big, they've been here, they've had professionals, so they even have the resources to invest in such programs to create awareness, education, put in place support systems, the peer networks that will support their staff, and others are only starting out. It might be very difficult for someone who is just starting out their business to go and invest into, say, a peer counselor program where you have to actually invest resources to train these people, to get them to a point where they can be able to support the people to understand how to identify the challenges and also support. So Ministry of Labor is in charge of all the work, workplaces in this country, but also the Ministry of Gender has a part. They have a department that is supporting on this. However, for the professionals, the Human Resource Managers Association, where we have, I think right now we have about I think over 500 members or more than that. I'm no longer on the committee, but more than that. But the leadership is supporting members of the association. So if someone is not a member, it becomes a bit difficult to get into their space. But that doesn't mean that we will not get in and support those people that are actually struggling. So if you got into a place like that, where the head of HR, together with their executive, do not think it is important, you can approach the association, the Human Resource Managers Association. I can share the contacts of our president. We have a website and we have an administrator who you can call, and then we can get in. Initially, to just engage with this leader. Probably they just do not know the importance, or because they've not had exposure, they just do not know how to. But the support network is there. We can actually help. For organizations that are well placed, that have the resources, that they are already ahead. Many of them have policies, others have not even started. So it's upon us incumbent. Like I said, mental wellness isn't just for a few. Any one of us can be there. You can easily get there if you got an incident that actually traumatized you, or you had an accident. Any one of us is a potential. We can all have a mental wellness challenge. So as professionals, yes, we will get in there within the means that we can. We might not probably eat the entire cake, but we'll take it one day at a time. If there is someone who you think really needs help, you can call on us. Otherwise, from a national perspective, the Ministry of Labor, the Ministry of Gender is in place to take on such. But mental wellness, as you know, it is something that has just begun to be appreciated. We had it before, but not to the extent that it is visible now. But right now that we are having it as a critical aspect of work, we will take it up. we can, through the Human Resource Managers Association, we can take this up. Madam Edgold, help me take the other questions in the chat because I'm soon signing out. How do you make sure that top management actually participate and implement mental health policies, stress-free work environments at the workplace? First and foremost, we have to be compliant. As employers, we all have to be compliant with the Employment Act. Within that act, at least you're required to give someone a lunch break, an hour of their work. That is initially a starting point that is within the law that we all have to comply with. But like I said, many organizations now have come up with things like aerobics. Actually, you don't have to even have money to do aerobics. You can have your speaker, you can play music, and people will dance. Those that can afford, they actually have professional people that come in and help people to exercise. But even if you started with walking, take off an hour in your workplace and just walk. Walk for an hour, say from, I sit at Mapera, walk from Mapera to Wandege and walk back. I know I have a team, they take a 5-kilometer run every Tuesday and Thursday. They just run, go through Nakasero and come back. That does not take money, but it takes someone to care, to say that this exercise is going to be helpful. So in terms of having a stress-free work environment, in certain industries, stress is just part of life. We just need to know how to manage, okay, how to help others cope. Because in banking, yeah, every time we open a bank, there is work. So work will never stop. Every day we open to the public, there is work. But how do we manage? So as employers, how do we support? Some organizations have helped, they even provide meals for their staff. That is good. That is a starting point. The counseling. Some workplaces in my organization, we actually have mass in all the branches. All these are initiatives that employers can take. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Salome. The most important thing we take from here is that it doesn't have to be money all the time. It takes someone to care and be able to have policies in place that are not pegged to money, but are pegged to care. Madam Mary, can you take up Father's question? Father Herbert asked about trauma.
Yeah, thank you, Father Herbert, for the question. And thank you, Madam Salome, for answering Prosi. Now, what Father Herbert is talking about is both collective trauma, but also individual trauma. So what happened in Rwanda is massive and collective trauma because many people got traumatized because of war and conflict and, and what we know that happened. And so Father asks, what are the procedures? What should be the procedure? So I wouldn't say that there's a correct procedure for everyone. But in trauma management, the first thing we do is stabilization. It's to stabilize the situation for an individual or for a community. And so the different things that are done to make sure that people understand that we are safe, we are in a safe environment, there's no killing any longer, we are safe now. That is part of stabilization. And so the first thing to do is to stabilize, because the way I explained the alarm system that gets off when we go through traumatic experience, our system gets alarmed and we become very alert and we feel very unsafe. And for the case of Rwanda that happened, where such genocide happened, people there's need to acknowledge and people understand that trauma is there, and such experiences traumatize people and leave people with wounds that need to be treated that need to be supported. And then the next thing you can do is to do assessment, because when people go through such collective deep trauma as such, some of them end up with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic stress disorder is not something that it's a, I would say it's a condition of the mind that doesn't just go away. I would relate it to a wound that has become septic. When a physical wound becomes septic and you don't take it for treatment, you know what happens. Either they cut off the leg or you get a very disabling condition. So PTSD can be related to a septic wound. So meaning that when the person goes to that level of PTSD, which for many people that went through genocide, I think that happened, they need assessment, they need support. And so there's no one method fits it all, but the first thing to do is to stabilize, to sensitize people, for people to acknowledge and know, so that people have an understanding and they are sensitive to understanding that these people are reacting like this or responding like this because of trauma. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mary. So do we go for what comes first? What is when you talk about stabilization? Does it include seeking medical attention? Because he wanted to know what comes first.
What comes first is not seeking medical attention, actually. What comes first is stabilization. So it depends on where you're coming from. If you're coming from response, for example, if you're going to respond to the people, what needs to come first is to stabilize them, is to put them in a safe place, is to help them understand that it is now safe and there is support. And then after that, you go to assessment. You assess them to find out where are they at. Some of them will have PTSD. Some of them may not have developed PTSD, because not everyone who goes through traumatic experiences develop PTSD. And then those that develop PTSD, those you assess, and then you find they have developed PTSD, they have to go on a particular, they have to go through treatment. And the treatment doesn't mean medication. Some people may require medication, some people may require counseling, some people may require peer support. And so it's in terms of procedure, as when you stabilize, part of stabilizing is educating people, for people to understand that this is what is going on. This is, I'm responding like this because I'm reacting like this because of what I've gone through. And for many people, when they are educated about understanding that I'm reacting like this because of what I went through, for some people that relieves them. Doesn't mean that they heal completely, but it reduces the symptoms. It reduces they act in awareness and they're able to manage their symptoms better. And then you go to assessment, and then you design treatment programs. If it is someone seeking help, then the first thing that they need to do is to go for help, is to seek support and get assessed and get supported. So stabilization comes first. For anyone who has gone through trauma, it is very important to stabilize them.
Thank you so much, Mary. There is another question in the chat that from a practical point of view, if I'm a mother that leaves my baby's children in the care of house help, how can I spot the signs that she might be having trauma? If one day I find out that she has a mental health issue, what am I supposed to do? Sarah, do you want to take on that?
Thank you very much for that, and for the Madam Mary and Salome for answering the questions very well. First of all, let me see her name. The one who asked
Rosemary.
Rosemary.
It's from Rosemary.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to commend you for being concerned about your maid and her well-being and asking that question. That shows compassion and you want the best way forward. So how can you spot the signs? Some of the signs Madam Mary went through, talked about them. Maybe we can later have your contact and we give you all the signs, or you can find them on the website. Some that she mentioned, that were mentioned, could be sleep disturbances, mood swings, physical complaints like stomach ache, always, then the emotional signs of cognitive being startled. So it's a comprehensive thing. It's not just one sign, but the different signs. So if you personally take a look at all those signs and you suspect, just like our mother said recently, I had to understanding the signs of being startled, I had to approach her and ask her what you think. So after you have seen all those signs and you think maybe she has trauma, one of the first things to have is empathy, to be able to acknowledge whatever she's going through, and then equipping yourself to have that conversation, to begin by saying, I have noticed maybe you have been stressed a bit, or whatever you've noticed. I'm here if you'd like to talk. Just having that conversation. And that would be the next step where you have said, what am I supposed to do? And if possible, if you have that conversation and you see that actually she has an experience of trauma or a mental health challenge, seeking help for her. The same way you would take her to a doctor if she had malaria, just seeking that support that she needs, and putting in measures to help. Because as I said, most of us with the right support were still able to work. But those measures like making sure she has enough rest, to have enough rest, she herself understands what's going on. Like Madame Mary said, when we are able to understand what's going on, it helps us be able to cope better and manage and be able to still have a career or pursue our goals. I don't know if that has helped Madame Salome, or if
It was
Madame Mary,
Rosemary.
Madame
Um,
Rosemary, if Madame Mary would like to add something.
Yes.
Mary, would you like to add something? Maybe
Yes,
as you come on,
let me
just to let ourselves know that even maids in the home are human beings. Sometimes we forget and take them as if they have no emotions. We take them as if they are like machines. We never show compassion. What happens is that we let them work without anyone. We all have maids. I'm not going to ask anyone to put up their hands, but how many times have you hugged your maid and said, I know you are going through this, it will be okay? Or even just to hug her and say, thank you for taking care of my children. There are things, little things we need to do. And when we get closer to them, then they'll be able to open up. I will tell you that one time I had someone who used to tell some little lies. I was like, oh, but what is happening? But when the person opened up and told me the story, I could see that that was another way of survival. So I started saying, no, may I love the truth. Maybe I'll get annoyed. I might do this, but I can never kill you for the truth. So we need to have that talk again, or compassionate talk. So, Madam Mary, you can add on.
Thank you. Thank you, Edie, and thank you, Madam Mande. That is very helpful. I'm just going to add, Rose, for a mother who is leaving a child with a caretaker and noticing, okay, how can you notice? First of all, you can see things like you might find someone has very low self-esteem, very low self-esteem or lack of confidence. There's respect, but there's also lack of confidence. You may find that one of the signs is being violent. You'll find a maid that pinches a child. You know, those small things of pinching, like helpers who are sometimes violent to children. They might have faced violence themselves, and often our response is to either chase them away or punish them or scream at them. And yeah, I'm not blaming anyone, but it's very possible that those things are coming from their own trauma that they went through. I think the first response, Madam Edie, Sarah talked about them very well. But it's important for you to calm down. It's very easy for you to be alarmed when you see it. It's good for you to calm down, because once you calm down, it will be easier for you to even be compassionate. I like what Sarah talked about, being mindfulness. I think at that point, what you need is mindfulness, because the way you respond can either re-traumatize her and not help her, or help your child. So it's good to calm down, to know that it's possible for this person to be okay. And then listen. Sarah said, have a conversation. In this conversation, try to listen. Maids often fear us as bosses because we are their bosses. And so give her time to listen to her and listen to her story. And try to listen when you have the time. When you have the time to, take all the time and listen to her story. And depending on what you find out, it's important for you to protect your child. So depending on what you find out, look at both your child and the maid in a way that you want to help the maid with the trauma or the mental health need she has, but you also want to help and protect your child. So support both of them. Do everything you're able to do to support your maid and also support your child. If it requires you, it requires you seeking help for the maid to get support and solve or handle whatever she's dealing with, and if it requires you having a break and taking away your child or getting someone to take care of it. So listening, have a conversation, an honest conversation with care, with an aspect of wanting to support her and help her, because the trauma of the maid can go on to the child. And so it's important for you to be mindful of, you have to support, it's important to support both of them. And there is support available. But you may even find out that the trauma she has doesn't require you to not allow her to continue taking care of your child. So she needs to be involved in this whole thing. But the mindset, trauma-informed care, the mindset is for you to calm down, compassionately listen to her, to support her overcome it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have actually outdone our time. We thank you for having stayed on. We have our website is still being put together, but you can get to it. We have our app that is coming on, and we have you can I think we shared some numbers. You can always reach out to us and we see how to carry on the discussion. The speakers, we are very much appreciated, and also Rose has appreciated the advice that has been given. We have to make sure that the two, both the maid and the child are safe. That is the first important thing that we have to take care of, and then the rest we can move on with the advice that has been given. We really appreciate for having kept the time and even gone beyond the time. And we pray that going forward, we shall also be getting more people. And there is a comment from one of our directors, Edward Ruyomba. Ruyomba is a director for Free Mind Hive. He has actually added something that we need to listen to the children whenever they are being tortured by the mates. They talk and we shouldn't just brush it. So we need to listen to them and try to watch them as they interact. There's one who used to really pinch a child, and I think they thought the child would not be able to report, but the child was able to speak, and we could see that actually the child wasn't telling a lie. And when we approached the maid, the way she reacted affirmed that she was actually pinching the child. So we have to make sure that the two are safe. Of course, and then the rest can be done. We have a post-webinar assessment. Kindly fill it in. It will help us to plan for the next and to also learn more from you and get to know what you have picked from this assessment, from this webinar. You can do it now. You can send it after, but kindly fill it in. And yes, I don't know. Edie, do you have any final words for the participants of today's seminar before I close it?
I'd like to say thank you. Thank you to you, Mother, for the great work in moderating, to the speakers, everyone who has tuned in and invested in your well-being, mental well-being. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Just maybe to let you know to save the date for our next webinar every last Saturday of the month, though some have been saying we should do it the first Saturday so that they are aware of the theme of the month. So we'll send out also another survey to see when would you want to have these talks, at the beginning or the end. But I enjoy your weekend. Today's visiting day for some schools. And I enjoyed that. We love you so much. Thank you for walking this journey with us. Your engagement and participation is truly appreciated. We shall share the presentations, and we've been doing a whole month, 30 challenges every day that can be done in the workplace. Check our social media to receive some of those challenges and get ready for next month. It's such an amazing month where we'll look at compassionate care, upholding mental health rights for children, youth, and their families. We all have a say and a voice in that. Thank you. Good
Okay.
afternoon. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Edward, are you able to say a word where you are, or you are still engaged?
Well, I can, what I can say is thank you so much. Thank you so much for organizing this wonderful session. And the presenters, you've done us justice. Thank you so much. We've benefited from a lot of practical experience sharing and wisdom sharing, and we can't thank you enough. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'm going to pick from one of the participants to give us a closing prayer. Madam Irene Otrot, are you able to talk where you are? Are you able to talk and you give us a closing prayer? Okay, if not, okay, please. Are you able to talk?
Yes, are you hearing me?
Yes, you can give us a closing prayer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Eddie Gold, for the engagement and the awareness, and your team. You're doing a great job. As requested by you, may we humble ourselves, we're in our different places for prayer. A closing prayer. Lord Jesus Christ, we want to thank you for the minds that have come and joined in to create awareness about mental health. We appreciate that you enable us to engage as a community, as a country, and also as a nation to make sure that we create workplaces which care about the employee and also care about the employers. I want to thank you for the directors and all the people behind this platform, that you give them wisdom and continue giving them energy to share with the participants, and also may this information reach out to those who were not able to join in, and also create an open mind in those that manage employees and also the government of Uganda. I want to glorify your name, that we've learned a lot from this engagement, and I pray that you send your Holy Spirit to guide us to implement what we've learned, and also keep us aware of other platforms where we can get such information. In your mighty name I've prayed and believed. Amen.
Amen and amen. Amen and amen. Have a great weekend, and look out on our social handles for the next webinars, for the information coming in. And we shall also continue engaging different associations to make sure that mental health awareness reaches far and wide. God bless you and have a good afternoon. Bye-bye. Please don't forget to fill in the surveys we shared. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
The beauty with this the platform, we have so many people from outside Uganda. So information is really moving far and wide.